Philosophy is a cosmically grand undertaking. The mission we as agents are on to manage a shifting intellectual landscape, it's overwhelming, it's huge. What constitutes reality? What is consciousness? Do objects have intrinsic value? Do propositions or statements have intrinsic value? Are humans objects? Do humans have intrinsic or extrinsic value? There's so many viewpoints that we're inundated by. Some uncover new territory, some create new territory, some build on others, and some detract from others. I do think there's an end to it. Universality is the hard discovery, the impenetrable gold coin retrieved off the bottom of the pool, the bridge over a relativistic void. But the intellectual space that philosophy grows in is more like a rocky coast in which a wave crashes against the cliffs. The tide goes up and down and the waves come in persistently. The tide changes at predictable intervals, yet every tide is different. Waves coming in have a similar form, yet every wave is different. The rocks change at a very slow rate, creating contrast and change between the volatile crashing whitewash of the ocean and the compressed density of the cliffs. There's hard rocks in philosophy, objective reality. It changes slowly in contrast to the crashing waves that happen in the philosophical intellectual space. These slow-changing, hard intellectual objects create a contrast that implies a certainty for all intents and purposes. Some insist implied certainty is not absolute certainty. They reject reality for an idealized, perfect certainty and banish themselves into relativism. You're insisting on something that will never be. If a relativistic punishment is determined for agents who insist they are going to tell reality how to be, I say it's fair. Unfortunately, relativistic mindsets are destructive and contagious, and as responsible agents seeking a rational, reasonable, nonviolent future, we have to save absolutists from themselves. For all intents and purposes, you can know, and reality is relational, not relative. Axiology is a branch of philosophy that studies the nature of values and value judgments. It encompasses two main areas: ethics, which deals with moral values and principles, and aesthetics, which focuses on the nature of beauty and artistic value. Axiology examines questions such as, what is value? How do we determine what is valuable? What makes something good or bad, right or wrong? Key areas of axiology: ethics, moral philosophy, normative ethics. Normative ethics investigates the criteria for what makes actions right or wrong. It explores different theories such as consequentialism, deontology, and virtue ethics. Metaethics. Metaethics examines the nature of moral judgments and statements, asking questions like whether moral values are objective or subjective. Applied ethics. Applied ethics applies ethical principles to specific practical issues such as bioethics, environmental ethics, business ethics, and social justice. Aesthetics. Philosophy of art and beauty. The nature of beauty. The nature of beauty explores what makes something beautiful and the criteria for aesthetic appreciation. Art criticism. Art criticism analyzes the value and meaning of art, considering the role of the artist's intention, the artwork itself, and the audience's interpretation. Aesthetic experience. Aesthetic experience investigates the subjective experience of art and beauty, including emotional responses and the cognitive processes involved. Fundamental questions in axiology. What is value? Axiology seeks to define and understand the concept of value itself, value hierarchies. The study often involves creating hierarchies of values, determining which values are more fundamental or important than others. For example, is happiness more valuable than knowledge, or is justice more important than individual freedom? Value realism versus anti-realism. Value realism posits that values exist independently of human minds, while anti-realism suggests that values are human constructs or subjective interpretations. I think you guys know where I stand on this one. Values emerge from deterministic chains of contingency in our objective reality. When we perceive them and add goals to the situation, values emerge. Subjective versus objective values. This debate centers on whether values are universal or can be objectively determined, or if they are personal and culturally relative. Theoretical approaches. Value theory. Value theory explores different types of values, moral, aesthetic, economic, and their interrelations. It includes discussions on how values are assessed and compared. Hedonism. Hedonism is a theory that considers pleasure or happiness as the highest good and the primary motivation for human actions. Pluralism. Pluralism is the view that there are many different values that cannot be reduced to a single standard. This contrasts with monistic theories that attempt to reduce all values to one overarching principle. Pragmatism. Pragmatism is a philosophical approach that assesses the truth of beliefs and value of actions based on their practical consequences and usefulness. In my studies for this script, I found this amazing value model by Robert S. Hartman. Robert S. Hartman was a German-American logician and a philosopher known for his work in axiology. He's most famous for developing the Hartman Value Profile, a quantitative tool designed to measure the value preferences and decision-making styles of individuals. Hartman authored several books and numerous articles on the nature of values and value theory. His most notable work, The Structure of Value, Foundations of Scientific Axiology, 1967, outlines his formal theory of value. He was nominated for a Nobel Prize for his work. I sort of looked around to see if I could take his test and see how I would score, but there's kind of a lot of shady sites and I don't want to click on the wrong site. And one of them that looked like it was legit said it was like $60 to take the test. I think for the most part, people that run businesses might use these tests to figure out if they're going to hire somebody. So that's why they're charging for it. Hartman discovered that every value has 3 dimensions. Every concept has the following types of value: the value of its uniqueness, the value of its functional role, the value of its meaning and purpose. These 3 values correlate with value dimensions: intrinsic value dimension, extrinsic value dimension, systematic value dimension. Basically, a concept or a person's uniqueness is intrinsic. Your extrinsic value is your functional role in life. You gain your meaning and purpose from systems you participate in and encounter in your life. The idea is that you can use these value types to score any concept and rate ideas in order of importance. I linked to Robert Hartman's study down in the description for the video. Read it and check it out. It's really great. It's a good value system for scoring values, or it's an interesting value system for scoring values. Some ideas are better than others, and we just have to face that. We can't just run away and bury our head in the sand using relativism wearing the disguise of egalitarianism. Some values are destructive. Some values are culturally perpetuated. We have to face that. There's a whole spectrum of ideas that sit on a scale from total global destruction to the slightest hint of aesthetic implication. Cataclysmic asteroids, pandemics, floods, nuclear war on one side, where we have to identify and evaluate our values to prevent these catastrophes from happening. The other side, aesthetics, we deal with nothing more than the science of beauty and why certain ideas are desirable over others. Ideas that prevent human suffering and support human flourishing are always going to take immediate precedence of importance in an axiological sense because the consequence is so heavy. Some ideas simply have to be more important than others. To avoid that implication is to choose absurdity to protect relativism. Ideology cannot prevent pragmatism from playing out. It's immoral. If you guys like this kind of philosophical subject matter, help us grow the channel by liking the video and subscribing to the channel.